get it and have it on your coffee table. You can also Google Erik's name and find lots of different articles and whatnot that he's written online. One that he sent me that I read last night was called "The Northeast History of Northeast Peak Bagging," Part 1 and 2. Fascinating read, all about the Adirondacks and New England and all over the Northeast. Very interesting reads. Now, there's another subject that I would like to speak with you about because I know you have very interesting thoughts on it, and I want to share those thoughts. Giardia, take me through your thoughts on if we should filter our water when we're out in the backcountry. Because I
Yes,
know
and
you have a very specific set of thoughts on this subject.
yes, and this is very interesting. The interesting part of the conversation of is water in the woods okay to drink as is, or should you treat it in some manner? It it's interesting if the water is okay or not. What is far more interesting and downright fascinating is people's response when I tell them that the water is okay to drink. And I see some um, confirmation bias, and it makes people feel very uncomfortable when I tell them, hey, the water is okay. And indeed, it's okay because I've done my homework. I've been researching backcountry water since 2005. And since 2005, I have not treated any of my water ever. And I'm up to about 2,000 untreated quarts drunk, and I feel just fine. So the short story of all this is, are backpackers getting sick in the woods? And are some backpackers developing giardiasis? The answer is yes. Okay, so that's where I agree with fellow authors and the Department of Environmental Conservation and the Adirondack Mountain Club. We're all in agreement that hikers are getting sick. Now, it's rare. I have 100 backpackers who go into the woods. How many are getting sick? Maybe five, maybe four, something like that. But then I go a step further and I say, why? Why are these hikers occasionally getting sick? Now, people who disagree with me will simply say, it's the water. Okay. But that is a flawed way of looking at it because it's just a univariate analysis. Okay. Beware of the purveyors of single cause analysis. So when you say, why does this happen? And somebody offers just a one word answer, oh, it's the water, you have to be very cautious of jumping to those conclusions. How hikers are getting sick, and this has been proven with extensive research, they're getting sick in two ways. One, they're developing a foodborne illness in the woods. So they do their dishes, they're not washing them, they're eating out of bowls, they're eating using utensils that haven't been cleaned, and it's just a straight up foodborne illness, nothing more, nothing less. Now, the majority of hikers are not getting a foodborne illness, they're getting sick from, and it's about as disgusting as it sounds, direct fecal oral contact. So
That
this
does
is
sound
how it,
disgusting.
oh, yeah, it doesn't get much, it's
Oof.
very, very descriptive.
Yes.
This is what happens. I go backpacking with 9 of my friends. Okay, so we're going backpacking, a group of 10. We take a break, and I say, oh, I have to use the facilities. And so I go to the outhouse and I pull on the door and I do my business, and then I shut the door with my hand. I come back to the group. Somebody has this giant, delicious bag of gorp. They're sharing it, and they go with a stuffed mouth, oh my God, Erik, you got to try this gorp. It's delicious. I reach my hand in. This is the hand that touched the outhouse door. Now, though you can't see it, there's poop in the gorp, and they continue to pass it around the group. No study ever, no evidence has ever shown that backcountry water is unsafe for consumption as is. On the other hand, all evidence shows that hikers are getting a foodborne illness, but much more commonly spreading disease via direct fecal oral contact.
Interesting. So now, would you say I would definitely, well, for starters, I would definitely rather take my analogy and scoop up some delicious river water and drink that than have the poop gorp. I definitely want to pass on the poop gorp. So would you say, though, filter? Now, what if, for example, you're walking up the river and then you see, a dead deer carcass in the river. And to me, in my brain, I'm thinking that's kind of why I feel like filtering my water would be important, because I don't know what's up the river, because it could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying in your mind we could just be we should, I don't know if you're saying should, but we could just take our analogy and scoop up some water and just send it down? That's pretty much your thoughts? Or what are your thoughts on the idea that maybe that would be a reason to filter water? Or am I being overkill even in this regard?
Right. And people have brought up that point, and it's a totally valid question. All I can say is I've hiked 15,000 miles. I have found one dead animal in a stream.
Sure.
So the chances of that are pretty slim. The other question people ask me, and it's kind of tied to what you're saying, they say, well, treating water is easy, so why not just do it? And I'm not here to discuss if it's easy or not. It's just, does evidence support treating water is necessary? That's the question I'm asking. So it's not, oh, you could just use a light pen, or, oh, filtering it is easy and you don't have to boil your water anymore. At that point, they've kind of moved beyond the conversation I'm trying to have with them. It's not, well, is filtering easy? It's, do you have to filter?
Is it necessary? Is the conversation?
Right.
Sure.
Right. Do you have to filter to begin with? Now, I can say this. So I have been, I volunteered myself to drink thousands of quarts of untreated water throughout the United States. I never developed giardiasis. But what I also did when I used to build trails, I talked some trail crew members into not treating their water. And then when I taught outdoor education, I had several students say, you know what? I think Erik knows what he's talking about. I'm just going to go for it. Collectively, the people who I've worked with in the mountains have consumed, it's in my article, it's somewhere around 2,000 or 3,000 quarts of untreated water, and no one got sick ever. And why they didn't get sick is I guarded them from foodborne illness and direct fecal oral contact. So, for example, I led some trips for a university in upstate New York, who I will not mention their name because they are guilty, but they were experiencing high infection rates of foodborne illnesses and a couple cases of giardiasis, or not even giardiasis, just diarrhea, nausea, just students really not feeling well. I came in and I kind of revamped their hygiene approach while telling them to leave their filters in the gear room. They wouldn't need them. And we had a 0% illness rate.
Well, there you go. There you go. And the article that you sent me, is that published online? Is that can somebody find that online, or is that something you sent me that is not online?
It's probably not online. There is an earlier version of it in Blue Line to Blue Line.
Okay, there you go. Great. So you can read up more on this subject and Erik's opinions and Erik's research and whatnot on this subject in the Blue Line to Blue Line book. So check that out. So I want to move now to something that I think you'll be able to speak super intelligently to here in the Adirondacks in particular. What are your thoughts on the idea that is constantly being thrown about overuse in the Adirondacks? And, obviously the growing popularity of the area. You grew up here as well, as did I. And I mean, it's obvious now versus when I was a kid, the amount of people on the trails and, at the Giant Trailhead and at the Cascade Trailhead and everywhere, drastically more than it was when I was growing up. What's your opinions on, is this overuse to the trails a problem? Is it even a thing? What do you think would be the way to solve this current this current question? I won't call it a problem. I'll call it a question.
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of people interested in this, a lot of different opinions, some better than others. The way I look at the situation with the high peaks is I look for measurables. As a researcher and a writer, I love facts. And so it is fair to say, um, let's say, uh, let's say you observe day hike day hikers on Cascade Mountain have increased 15% per year for the last 8 years. Now I'm just making that up, but let's say that is true. Okay, you've got me. I'm in this conversation. Let's move forward. But when people use totally subjective terms, crowded, I don't know what that
Sure.
means. Overuse, I don't know what that means. So for me, a guy who bushwhacks all the time, a crowded summit has one other person
Sure. That makes
because
sense.
I usually see zero. But if somebody lives by Cascade Mountain and they enjoy hiking Cascade Mountain often, and they're up there around 50 or 60 people, they may not call that crowded. So I'm not exactly sure what people are trying to tell me when they tell me there's overuse or it's crowded. And this is where facts and opinions get blurred. So there are several people involved in policy, writers. I've seen them write these articles, and they are upset that Cascade Mountain is, and I'm using my little air quotes here, crowded. Okay. But I don't see, let's say there are 80 people on top of Cascade Mountain on Memorial Day weekend. All 80 people there are voluntarily there. They have consented to climb Cascade Mountain and hang out with 79 other people. And so I really don't see if it's crowded if people are enjoying what they're doing. They must not think it's crowded, right? But it's very interesting that a person who did not hike Cascade Mountain is crying foul over it being crowded. And it's like, well,
Sure.
the users don't think it's crowded. You think it's crowded, but you weren't even there. So it's a very interesting way to look at things. So look, if there are a certain amount of campsites and lean-tos at Marcy Dam, let's say they can hold 100 people per night, and you have 200 people hiking in there at night, that is overuse because the holding capacity of the accommodations have been exceeded, and these extra 100 people have nowhere to go, and so they end up camping illegally. So when it comes down to pure numbers and facts, I'm with people in this conversation. When they start using words like crowded and overused, I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to tell me.
Absolutely. I have a very specific and kind of a different opinion than I hear most people talking about regarding this subject. Personally, in my mind, being a native to the Adirondacks, the idea of this overuse or, becoming super popular, I personally find it beneficial to the towns and the areas that people want to come here because, I know these towns only flourish from tourism. That's what this is. That's what we are here. So in my mind, it's like we have a business, we have a product that people want, and they're kind of flocking up here to take advantage of this product and to enjoy it. And in my mind, instead of shooing people away like a lot of people discuss, I personally think we need to accommodate this growing demand for people to come here. And if we need more parking, we need shuttles. If these are the things that we need to accommodate the extra usage, as well as continuing to try to spread the foot traffic out, which is something that's an ongoing quest. But to me, that's the I always tell people I don't think there's an overuse. I also hate the word, but that's the word that's always used in the conversation. So with you having professional trail crew experience, and you knowing quite a bit